Hello friends, today I will be discussing a gynae topic. A similar obstetric topic is also there in my list. Those of you who have already subscribed to my classes, they know it very well, that towards the end of my schedule of obstetrics, we have infectious diseases in pregnancy, and in which I have so many infections: the protozoal infections, the bacterial infections in pregnancy, the viral infections in pregnancy, amongst which in different categories these sexually transmitted diseases are also studied again in obstetrics, only the ones which are important in pregnancy. But currently my topic of discussion will be the sexually transmitted diseases in general. I'm not taking it up as an obstetrical topic. So which infections do we have to study? Now, the coverage of these STDs in your NOVAX is very poor, not properly given, but nevertheless this is an important topic and you should know at least a little bit about these infections. And I'm going to give you just an overview. We will not go too deep into any topic, but yes, you should know the management of these infectious diseases. So first of all, we'll be discussing chlamydia. I have syphilis. Then we have herpes, then we have HIV, and this is an exhaustive list actually, but I'll not go into the further details of other diseases like molluscum contagiosum, there is gonorrhea, and there are many others as well. I'll give you an overview, yes, but covering the entire thing right from diagnosis to symptoms to signs and then your treatment is not possible in such a short duration of one particular class. So today's discussion, we'll be talking about chlamydia. Now let us stress upon chlamydia. If I ask you in general, what exactly is chlamydia? What are the signs and symptoms? What is the prognosis? What is the course of the infection? And other important things you will not be able to answer for the simple reason that you probably do not know about it in depth. So what do we know about chlamydia? See, I'll be providing you the latest BASH guidelines about chlamydia because you need to know the guidelines as well. But apart from those guidelines also, there are certain basic things that you need to know about chlamydia because again, we do not discuss it much in depth, and that is the reason why we do not know the important aspects of chlamydia. So I'm going to discuss those salient features only, which if you don't know will be considered really bad, and you will not be able to secure marks in your Viva or your theory exams if you don't know these points. Now, first of all, chlamydia is an intracellular obligate parasite that you need to know. So it's very difficult to find out to diagnose chlamydia per se. Number one. Number two, it has got certain strains. You know, it's got serotypes D to K, which is responsible for the genital infections. And then it has got L1 to L3 serotypes, which are responsible for the lymphogranuloma venerum. LGV we talk about, LGV. This is a kind of chlamydial infection, lymphogranuloma venerum, and this is caused by the serotypes of chlamydia, which is L1 to L3 serotypes. It is definitely a sexually transmitted disease, but the risk is more in people who have younger females, who have multiple sexual partners, the ones who've got an irregular use of condom, the ones who are into sexual relationship with more than one, and new sexual partner might also lead to chlamydial infection. So you should have a rate of suspicion on once you're taking the history, and it should also point towards that particular direction. Now, what is the natural course of chlamydial disease? It can either persist or it can vanish on its own. Alright, when I say it resolves spontaneously, what do I mean by that? It is also the natural course of history of chlamydial infection that it will slowly perish. Or it also depends upon the host defense mechanism, that you have macrophages which might engulf these obligate parasites and might just get rid of it from the body. Now, but this was the natural course of the disease, but when it is present in the body, what all can it do? It is responsible for PID, pelvic inflammatory disease, number one. It is also responsible for tubo-ovarian infection. It is responsible for tubal infertility. It is also responsible for the distorted tubal anatomy, because of which ectopic pregnancy also increases as a result of chlamydial infection. So chlamydial infection is associated with infertility and associated with ectopic pregnancy both. So you should always have that suspicion in your mind when you're treating with a young female who's either not getting in fertility or who's had an episode of infertility along with one maybe ectopic pregnancy. You should at least go ahead and empirically treat chlamydia. That was my main intention of telling you this. Usually, what are the clinical features? If I ask you, what are the signs and symptoms of patient who you suspect to have chlamydia? Usually the patient is asymptomatic. Very important. Patient is asymptomatic. If at all she'll have symptoms, it will be like very vague symptoms, like maybe increase in vaginal discharge, maybe postcoital bleeding, more maybe deep dyspareunia, a discomfort lower abdomen. Again, very vague symptoms. What will be the signs? The signs are again very vague. You have mucopurulent cervicitis, you can have pelvic tenderness, and may have cervical motion tenderness, all of which fit in the pelvic inflammatory disease category as well. So urethral discharge in men or dysuria in men along with female having similar history raises the suspicion towards chlamydia. And usually people are not that intelligent which come to our OPD, so you always should have chlamydia in your mind when you're treating the patients, and it is not a very rare disease to come across when you're treating the common general public. It does have extragenital infections, and you'll be surprised to know it can cause conjunctivitis, it can cause pharyngitis, it can cause anal itching, it can cause, these are the extragenital infections of chlamydia. So how will you get to know? If you can take a pharyngeal swab and send it for NAT. Now the latest diagnosis of NAT, the chlamydia, is through NAAT, but we'll get to that a little later. I'm just telling you right now that it is very difficult to finally say how did you find out that this patient has a chlamydial pharyngitis or a chlamydial conjunctivitis. Association is yet to be established. How can a person get conjunctival infection? But pharyngeal infection and anal infection is again associated with the anal and oral sex. So it's complications of chlamydia. Like I said before, it can lead to tubal infertility, it can lead to tubal distortion, it can lead to PID, it can cause ectopic pregnancy. It is also related to an entity called as SARA, sexually acquired reactive arthritis. Percentage is less than 1%, but you should know this term. SARA, sexually acquired reactive arthritis, and it can cause perihepatitis as well. Now we come now to the diagnosis of chlamydia, and that is through nucleic amplification tests. And these nucleic amplification tests are the current standard test for diagnosing the chlamydial infection, and uske liye you need to take a vaginal swab. VVS, vulvovaginal swabs. If you send for these nucleic amplification tests, there is a very good chance of you detecting the chlamydial infection, diagnosing the chlamydial infection, because I said ki equal amount of effect is there in the males as well. They can have dysuria, they can have urethral chlamydia. That you can detect through first clean catch sample of urine, and again you have to subject it to the similar test. First catch urine sample, you will send it for the diagnosis. Otherwise, you can also take urethral swabs. You just have to put it 2 to 4 centimeters inside the urethra, and you have to rotate it once for the sampling. NAT assays are the choicest assays for both genital and extragenital samples. I'm reading directly from the guidelines for you to make sure that this is the correct diagnosis. And like I said, I'm just touching upon the salient points. So most important now that comes is the treatment of chlamydia. So recommended regimes for uncomplicated urogenital infection. You know, I know, one of the components of FAST 3 kit is, or a FAST kit, or so many names through which it is known, is azithromycin 1 gram. Now what is this reason for including azithromycin in these kind of kits, and what is the point in making these kind of kits? Azithromycin 1 gram is the recommended dosage of azithromycin for treating chlamydial infection. So that is the reason why it is included in this kit. Though it is not a very choicest drug, combination drugs are usually not the ones which you will find in any journal or any guideline, but nevertheless they are there in the market. We find it easy to give to the patients, they find it easy to take, and it's so on and so forth it goes. But yes, what is the radical, what is the reason why we include azithromycin 1 gram is because this is the dosage, the recommended dosage for treating chlamydial infection. So again, I'm repeating, for uncomplicated urogenital infection, treatment of choice is azithromycin 1 gram oral single dose or doxycycline 100 milligram BD for 7 days. That is the alternative regimens. बहुत सारी हैं. Instead of azithromycin, you can give erythromycin 500 milligram BD for 10 to 14 days, or you can give ofloxacin 200 milligram BD, 400 milligram OD for 7 days. Then you have rectal infection. The similar dose is there, 100 milligram BD for 7 days. Azithromycin 1 gram oral single dose is also the treatment of choice. So with this, I finish your uncomplicated chlamydia. I'll be discussing about lymphogranuloma venerum in my next class.